I like this question. I'm a big coffee drinker. I'd be disappointed if it was just a placebo effect.
Big questions, small questions. The ones that you ask the internet at 1 a.m. Our research experts have the answers to those everyday curiosities. Like,
Have you ever wondered if the placebo effect is real? Hi, I'm Dr Aron Hill from Deakin University, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Okay, so what exactly is the placebo effect? The placebo effect is this phenomenon that occurs in medicine, particularly where someone will get a positive response to a treatment that doesn't actually have any physiological effects or shouldn't have any physiological effects. So a classic example might be someone taking a sugar pill and getting a benefit from that, whether it's for pain or anxiety or depression. And it feeds into this idea of the brain and the body being really connected, and also the psychology around it. So our experience, our expectations, what we think is going to happen when we take a certain medication. How does the placebo effect work in the brain? There's a lot of research that's still being done on exactly how the placebo effect works. We know there are some physiological changes that seem to take place. So for instance, there's certain chemicals in the brain. One of them is called endorphins. So these are kind of chemicals that can help us relieve pain. They're like natural painkillers. And we know that when someone has a placebo response, they can have an increase in these endorphins that might explain some of the pain response that they get, this reduction in symptoms. Other chemicals like dopamine as well. So this is involved in reward pathways, and that seems to be activated as well during a placebo effect too. Is the placebo effect powerful enough to reduce pain or anxiety? Yeah, so I guess one of the key differences here is that certain medications obviously go a step further and might actually be able to treat some of the underlying causes of a disorder, whereas the placebo effect is generally just going to have an effect on symptoms. So it's not going to have an effect on actually treating serious underlying conditions. How do clinical trials use placebos? Yeah, placebo is really important for clinical trials. So we have sort of a gold standard in clinical trials, which is called a randomized control trial, or RCT. And this is where we are testing out, say, a new medication. So for instance, we might have a medication for pain, let's say a medication for migraine, and we want to see if it's effective. So typically how you might run that is you might get a group of people that take that medication and then another group of people that take a placebo. Yeah, really, really important for clinical trials, really, really important for showing that any effects of a medication go above and beyond this placebo effect. What's the difference between a placebo effect in medicine and in alternative medicine? I think probably one of the key difference is the way that we use it. So in medicine, we're using a placebo as a control. I think with a lot of alternative medicine, the tricky thing is that it hasn't gone through that rigorous process of like a randomized control trial. So often you might be taking a particular alternative medicine or a particular alternative therapy, and it might potentially have some effect, but we don't always know if it's just a placebo response or if it's a response beyond that sort of placebo effect. Are energy drinks and coffee a placebo, or do they actually give you more energy? I like this question. I'm a big coffee drinker. I'd be disappointed if it was just a placebo effect. But I think science is on my side with this, because there's a lot of research that's been done, particularly in coffee, that shows that it does have genuine physiological effects. So there are these chemicals in the brain called adenosine, and these build up throughout the day, and they're what make us tired. They're like sleepiness molecules, essentially. And caffeine, which is in coffee, is a sort of sneaky molecule that can actually get in and bind to these adenosine receptors and stop this adenosine from binding itself. And that gives us more energy and sort of helps us stay awake. That being said, I think there's a lot of other things probably at play. Like I love getting up in the morning, grinding some fresh coffee beans. I love the smell of coffee. I think that ritual, that whole experience is probably going to feed into it as well and possibly give an additional boost. With energy drinks, I think harder to say. I'm not a big energy drink person, but I think there's probably, again, there's a lot of caffeine in these, often more caffeine than in a standard cup of coffee, often other caffeine-like derivatives as well as sugar, which can also give us a boost. So I think there's probably quite a bit of evidence that energy drinks do help, but I think there's probably also a lot of marketing involved as well. Next question. Have you ever convinced yourself that decaf coffee was giving you a buzz? I don't drink decaf very often. In fact, the only time I probably drink decaf is when the office has run out of proper coffee, but that does happen occasionally. And, you know, I think sometimes I do, and sometimes if I'm forced to have a decaf, I still do feel a little bit better afterwards. So I think there's probably some placebo effect there. I don't think it's as strong as if I have a genuine cup of coffee though. Yeah, and I think that if I drink decaf for too long and I don't get my coffee, I often get a headache, which is not great as well. What's the funniest or strangest example of a placebo effect you've come across in your research? I guess one of the things that I haven't talked about, it's almost like the evil twin of the placebo. It's called the nocebo effect. So this is where someone has an intervention or a treatment that doesn't contain any active ingredients, but they actually experience the negative side effects that might be associated with that medication. So an example might be someone taking a medication for pain and they know that there might be certain side effects, say headache or nausea. They can actually go on and experience those side effects as if it was an actual medication that could produce those. In terms of some of the sort of funniest or strangest examples, there's been a lot of work done in alcohol research. There's been experiments where they've sort of gotten participants, typically like college students in the United States, to come and participate in a fake bar scenario where they give them drinks, beer, cocktails, etc., and then they watch how they interact. And they find that even when they give these participants non-alcoholic drinks that the participants presume are alcoholic, they start to behave in ways as if they're actually starting to become intoxicated. So they might get looser, more social, louder. So again, a really interesting sort of social psychology dynamic that's going on there, I think. Okay, do you think social media hype around supplements makes the placebo effect even stronger? Obviously now we have a lot of celebrities that like endorse products. And I think that, you know, if you're seeing your favorite celebrity, your favorite sports star endorse things, that's probably going to feed into some extent the expectation. So I think that hype can certainly elevate the placebo effect to some degree.